What's up, guys? This is Isaac Rochell from the LA Chargers, and I am on the clock with AAU.
Thanks for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So let's reminisce for a second. We're going to rewind time. And what are some of your favorite AAU basketball memories?
I mean, if you played AAU basketball, you already know about the memories of trying to make it to Sunday. I mean, that was like the goal. I need to win 2 out of 3 games and make it to Sunday. And I just remember sitting around in the gym. You know, Friday was always for me like a get to the city that we're playing in, kind of get used to this new environment. And then Saturday was the crunch time. We're in the gym all day, enjoying each other. But that's, I mean, I guess to answer your question, like I said, it was make it to Sunday. That's my memory.
That's awesome. And what, if you remember at all, was some of the best advice you ever got specifically from one of your AAU coaches?
Yeah, so I actually had a pretty interesting AAU coach, and interesting is a polite way to describe him. He told me, we used to break it down on take everything, give nothing. And while I think that's a very intense, statement and not necessarily true in all parts of life, it's so true in the sports world. You have to have that mentality of, I'm taking everything. And as an NFL player, I'm competing literally to, like, it's my job against your job. Like, I'm trying to feed my family more than you're trying to feed your family, which again is super dramatic, but it's the reality of it. So that advice, while it was, a little aggressive to a middle schooler, it's so true even now.
So let's kind of talk about that. When did you decide to switch from basketball to, you know what, I'm just going to focus on football. I've got a better shot there.
Yeah, so it really wasn't until 10th grade, my sophomore year of high school. After my 10th grade season, I was kind of like, I'm gonna be done with basketball. I received my first football offer in 10th grade, so that was kind of the catalyst for me being like, all right, I'm done. So definitely 10th grade.
Okay. And, especially when you're playing multiple sports at a young age, AAU is not just about that one specific sport. It's about building relationships. Do you still talk to any of the guys you played with back in the day?
Yeah, it's crazy. There's actually some guys that play in the NFL that I played AAU basketball with. And, AAU is just such a unique organization because it doesn't matter what school you go to. It doesn't matter a lot of different things. You're on a team with a group of people, and you get to know them. So, I have some really good AAU memories. I don't know that I'd say I have it's like my best friend from AAU, but it's really cool to, like I said, follow kind of other people's journeys that I interacted with in AAU.
And how important do you think it is, not just AAU, but youth athletics in general? How important is it for kids to be active at a young age, and how successful does it help make them in adulthood?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 sides of it. There's a side that's like the obvious, like being a part of a team sport. There's so many transferable skills that you'll get from that. You also, like, the idea of being active and getting out and like spending your summers and your off time doing things like that is super important. And I think the other side for me, which has been more important, is I was just thrown in the fire when I was playing AAU. I mean, I was going to these huge tournaments, being like put in situations where I was having to go against the best players in the country in basketball. And what it taught me was how to deal with this big stage. I remember there were 2 tournaments in particular. One was at Clemson. There was an AAU tournament. And then the other one was at University of Tennessee. And I remember getting there thinking, man, like, this is like, I'm at the Super Bowl. And then I think later on I was in college and we had to go play Clemson when they were number 2 in the country. And I remember thinking, man, who would have thought that, like, I was stressed then playing at Clemson and then now I'm playing here on an even bigger stage. I think it kind of prepares you. So I think it's super important.
And let's kind of talk about those days, your college days. Let's go and reminisce. I know in the office specifically, we've got a huge Notre Dame fan. Yeah, they are everywhere, which I grew up in Chicago. So it was that was the dream when I was a kid. But tell me about those days and kind of those lessons you learned on the college field.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame taught me so much. I think part of it just comes from being in college. I mean, you don't have to play college football to learn life experiences, social skills, all those things from college. But again, for me, it was being on such a big stage. I mean, I just think back to some of the games I played in. I mean, again, this idea of being thrown in the fire. I was like, we're in these games, we're doing this. And then even just like the presence that Notre Dame has. So like you would have to do media. Like I would have to like talk to the media once a week at Notre Dame. And then I get to the NFL, and the media in the NFL is less than what Notre Dame was. So, just in a lot of ways, I was prepared, both as a person, and again, anybody can get that from being in college. But as an athlete, you know, how I operate as an athlete, I learned a lot. Playing on these big stages, I learned a lot in just a lot of different ways. So I am super thankful for my Notre Dame experience.
And for our young guys and girls that are going through this process now of trying to get recruited and play at that college level, what's some advice you have for them to help make sure they stand out and are at the top of recruiters list?
Yeah, I think we're in a great time of getting recruited where you will get found, right? So if you're good, you're going to get found. What I'll tell people is, when they do come and when these college recruiters come, these college coaches come, go somewhere that fits you. I had offers from Alabama, Georgia, all these SEC schools, and everybody wanted to tell me to go play in the SEC. And I went to Notre Dame. And for a lot of people, that didn't make sense. But for me, it made sense. In the same way, you have guys that are in these environments, guys and girls that are in these environments, and they have people telling them, maybe it's their parents, maybe it's their friends, that they need to go to a certain school. They need to achieve like a certain level for their recruiting process or for their sport experience to be meaningful. What I'm saying is go somewhere where you're going to be appreciated and go somewhere where you're going to get a good degree. There's way bigger things than just your sport. And at the end of the day, all that stuff's going to end. I'm in the NFL. I'm as high as you can get. I've made it to the professional level, and it's still going to end for me too. And so I'm glad that I went to a school that fit me. So that would be my advice. I get so frustrated by people going to schools where they're not going to play, and then they're committing everything to the sport, so they're not getting a great degree. And it's just like, go to the perfect fit.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's definitely big to come out of your mouth, because there are parents and coaches that say it's bigger than sports. You need to also be going for your education, and that kind of falls to the wayside when it's parents and things. Kids don't really listen, but that is a big thing. That school also has to make sure you can get a good degree out of it as well, because sports are not forever all the time.
You are going to get a 4-year degree for 40 years. That's what we say at Notre Dame, 4 for 40, because whatever you do in those 4 years is going to matter when you're 30 and you're 40 and you're 50. Like, it's way bigger than just those 4 years. And that's why, again, go somewhere where you're going to get a good degree. Go get your degree. If that's a D3 school that loves you and it's a great school, you need to go to that D3 school and get a great degree. And at the end of the day, I've played with guys and still play with guys who came from D2 schools, and they, they're in the NFL. I think about our running back, Austin Eckler. I mean, the guy's borderline a Pro Bowler, and he came from a D2 school. So again, if you're good enough, they will find you. So be selfish and choose the right situation for you.
Awesome. So let's go to another transitional year for you. 2017 NFL Draft. You went round 7, pick number 225.
Yes,
how was that rookie camp year? What was your mentality making it through your rookie season?
Yeah, it was super stressful. I mean, I think back to it and I'm like, man, it was an absolute whirlwind. But it's just part of it. And it's cheesy as it is, things like AAU actually did prepare me. Again, being thrown in the fire. Having coaches tell me things like take everything, give nothing, when I'm in the league and I'm struggling and it's my first year, at some point I have to be selfish and say, I need to get my mind right, because this is going to affect my future family and this is going to affect my future financial position. So despite all the struggles, I mean, coming in as a 7th round pick, kind of being slept on, having to prove myself, keeping that mentality really helped. And now here I am, I'll be in year 5 next year. You know, I've been on the same team. I have so much to be thankful for. So it's definitely a journey and a process.
And I kind of want to talk about that kind of mindset and like you said, you have to be hungry. You have to stay hungry because you always have to know that there is someone potentially better than you in the room. So that kind of being in 24/7, 365 mindset, does that ever get tiring, or how do you kind of take a break from that world?
No, here's my mentality. I pride myself, and a lot of people are like this. I pride myself in having the mentality of a one percenter. And when I say one percenter, I'm referring to when embracing that attitude, right? Like the example that I give is I love being at bat. And I think a lot of people like that. And what I mean when I say at bat is um, like when you're in a baseball game, you want to be at bat. You want to be the one playing the game. If you hit a home run, you're right back thinking, I want to be at bat. In the same way, you know, I love the grind. That's why I grind with Local Human. That's why I grind with everything that I do, because I have this weird mentality of wanting to be at bat. And I think that's that 1% mentality. And so I don't get tired of it. I love it. I love, you know, right before I go to sleep thinking like, man, did I do enough today? What do I need to do tomorrow? That's what keeps me going. So um, maybe that's what separates people and brings people to the NFL. I don't know, but I love it.
And let's talk about that. So, what is specifically bringing you to the Super Bowl is one of the highest honors that you can get, the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, which congratulations on being in the running for that. That's huge. So, talk to me a little bit about your nonprofit, what you're doing in your communities, and kind of what you're doing to make sure that you're not just a football player.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important what you said, being not just a football player. And I think that mentality, I think that mentality has to do with more than just football, right? Being more than just a fill in the blank. But for me, it's been an absolute priority of mine to do what I can do to start talking about different things to create more opportunity. So we've done a lot. We started Local Human 8 months ago. Well, really now it's like 9, 10 months ago. And we donated $100,000 in our first 10 months of existing through donations and t-shirt sales. We've done, you know, drive-throughs, we've done these feedings, we've done Christmas tree giveaways, random things like that. We went in a grocery store and paid for $5,000 worth of groceries, like just random stuff. But we're starting to get a little bit more strategic in what we talk about. So now we're starting to think about how can we get more specific? How can we create long-term conversations? So we're talking about mental health, a lot of things mental health related, and we're doing that through a number of different ways. But at the end of the day, you know, we've identified mental health as a huge thing that needs to be talked about. So we're always going to be doing this other stuff. We're always going to be doing the feedings and the drive-throughs and all those cool things. But we want to get people discussing, you know, mental health. But like I said, it's been a priority of mine. I mean, what good is it if you make it all the way to the NFL and you're just kind of doing it for yourself? I was just blessed to be massive and be really fast and to have this 1% mentality that I always talk about. But not everybody has that. So that's where I see myself carrying that burden of, all right, let me talk about some of these things. Let's cast the net and get people rolling. So it's been such an honor.
And I kind of want you to specifically talk about how the idea started. Because a lot of people have this idea that, oh my goodness, starting a nonprofit and trying to give back, it's this huge undertaking. But, you know, yours started out with a simple seed, for all practical purposes, a conversation.
Right. So we started, well, you're exactly right. We were sitting around in a dog park, myself and Trevor Beck. And we were like, man, this COVID is hitting hard, and there's like different groups of people that are getting hit worse than others. So we kind of identified the elderly population as a group that was getting hit really hard. So that's step one. And then we're like, so now what can we do? So we decided to just start selling t-shirts to raise money to donate to them, to donate to Meals on Wheels. So more meals can be donated to these different groups of people. And then what that turned into is just continuing to grind, continuing to have this mentality of, of growth and just being competitive and trying to grow a company. And then now here we are, 10 months later, where we're at, and things like the foundation and whatnot, that just kind of happens, right? That just happens organically. I think our whole company has been just that organic growth. So like you said, if you have an idea, chase it, because you don't know. That could be the next best thing. And that's kind of what we did.
And last but not least, is there anything else you want to say or talk about, or kind of a message to our athletes before we conclude?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what I said earlier. Like, as an athlete, you have to have this mentality of being at bat. You have to have the mentality of, oh, I was just in an AAU tournament and I was the MVP and I averaged 20 points, but like, what's good with this next tournament? How can I get better with this next tournament? And I know it can become cliche, but for me, when I start thinking of it like I want to be at bat, or I want to have this 1% mentality, it becomes less cheesy to me and it becomes more realistic. So that's my message. You have to fall in love with that. I had a college coach that said, you have to be obsessed with being obsessed. Like, you have to literally be okay with being obsessed with your obsession over your sport. Like, you have to like love it. You have to love every second of it. And again, I don't think that's a message that just pertains to sports. I think that's for everybody to hear. But that's my advice to the kids of AAU.
Well, thank you so much, Isaac, for sitting with us and sharing some words of wisdom.
Of course, anytime.